What's up, guys? So I want to do a reaction video to this one video by the YouTuber named Outside the Order. Looks like, it sounds like from what I've heard from his videos, that he's probably around my age or maybe a year younger than me. And his videos are interesting because he mentions some good things, but I also think that some of his views might be detrimental. I don't know, but I just want to react to it. So let's start in the beginning.
Guys, I'm not sad. I'm just running on empty. I feel empty. I feel void inside. I feel like something was taken from me really slowly over time. I didn't notice until it was gone. I think we've all been stripped from our natural habitats. We were built for community and for purpose, for meaning, and it's all been taken from us. We've just been replaced with a modern society with work and screens that really provides us with no purpose. We're not broken, we're just in the wrong environment. Our minds are telling us that every single day. I feel like every day I'm betraying myself by living a life that feels so unnatural to what I should be living. And it's starting to catch up, and I'm just feeling like there's a big void hole deep inside of me. I don't really get joy for that much anymore. The small things that used to bring me joy really don't anymore. I think I'm just exhausted after paying all my bills and even thinking about going out, and just the thought of going into debt to go and do something has kind of stripped out the enjoyment that I used to get from going to do things, because I know that.
Okay, so I just want to stop it there real quick. So first off, apologies. I don't really have any technological features at the moment to kind of show the video to you, so I'm just playing it from my car's Bluetooth. But yeah, the video is called "I'm Not Sad, I'm Empty." Now, I want to mention some things that I think he is bringing up some very important points, that in our lives currently, and perhaps this has always been the case to some extent, that a lot of us are living lives full of superficiality. There really isn't much out there to really give us meaning. He mentions about basically working just to pay the bills, that when it comes to our screens in a sense fill the void that or at least attempt to fill the void that we have in our lives. So that's why he's saying he's empty. And that he in his other videos, he mentions how he doesn't really have any connections with people. He doesn't really have many friends. His family lives a couple hours away. So he really does not have anyone in his life to really have a real connection with. And as you can tell, he's, and the whole point of this video is not really to say that he's depressed or anything, but really to say that he doesn't have anything that grounds him. He doesn't have anything that really gives him joy, in a sense, it seems. And because of that, he feels empty. And I think that there's something there. It's when in our lives, if we don't have any grounding, at least in anything spiritual, whether it be to in the case of our video, in a case of my video, in Jesus Christ, and in faith and trust in him, or in a higher power in general, we can go through life where it's we're just going through the motions. There's really nothing that is really satisfactory. And this is not a new phenomenon. I think every single civilization has gone through this, when there is an absence that can only be filled by God. I mean, look at the book of Ecclesiastes, written by King Solomon, or at least attributed to King Solomon. He goes through in the book of Ecclesiastes all about how it seems there's nothing in life but suffering. There's nothing in life but just going through the motions, it seems. And yet, at least for King Solomon, even though he didn't end well, even though he didn't end his life in relationship with God, he recognized this idea that like there's still a God, there's still someone to essentially lean on. But I think that when people don't have like a sense of the spirit of the spiritual, they're not putting their lives like based on anything that is objective. Like everything in life that to live for ends up becoming subjective, it seems. So I think he's definitely onto something, but let's continue listening.
The second I go and spend that money, I know I don't have the money, and it's just putting me farther behind. And as much as I try to enjoy what I'm doing, it's I can't. And it's like it's almost like joy has become a luxury nowadays that most of us can't afford. And it just sucks that our lives are just consisted of just work, bills, home, repeat. That's all we do. And I think that really contributes to kind of a lack of meaning in life and a reason to do what we're all doing. And then that contributes to just the feeling of being empty and sad, just not present. And you know, the division between everybody has turned everybody into a stranger. Nobody gives eye contact anymore. There's no just casual hellos. Maybe you're walking down the road and you just spark up a little conversation with somebody. That really contributes to your well-being, in my opinion, is those little things. You walk away with that and you've taken something from that conversation, something that assists you in life, and it just like recharges an energy inside of you. Mm-hmm. And when you don't ever get that, the energy eventually goes to zero, and then you feel empty and hollow inside. You've had no connection, nothing meaningful is happening in your life, and it's not tied together with anybody else. And I really have a strong belief in a collective energy, and we harvest it from each other. And when you don't have that connection, you're not getting recharged. And then when community dies, it's almost like we all slowly die with the death of community. And where I live, community is dead. They'll try and tell you that it's still.
Okay, so again, like he's going through this idea of like the importance of community, essentially the importance of like what it is to have a connection with someone. And like in my own job, I work in like the hospitality industry as a barista for a pharmaceutical company. I'm contracted by them, by a pharmaceutical company in Pennsylvania. And like I always make sure that when I'm helping people, since I'm like essentially working in front of house, like I make sure that I have those conversations with people, because of the fact that like, you know, like none of us know what each other's going through. None of us really know like the battles that someone's fighting, and that's so true. I mean, and like, you know, over time, getting to know other customers at work, I learn more about their lives. I learn also a little bit about their struggles, and like it's a really great and fulfilling thing to have those connections, to have those like relationships, even though they might be not necessarily superficial, but they're not like necessarily deep relationships, at least not all the time. There's still something where it's like when you interact with people and interact with them in a really good way, even if it's just small talk, as he's saying, like you have a connection that you're making with that other person, that you are essentially making yourself present to them without knowing what they could be dealing with. And I think in society, in a sense, because of these screens, because of like social media, we've kind of become they've kind of like backfired in a way. Like, how many people are you friends with online that you're actually friends with? How many people are you like, do you have subscribed to you on YouTube, or that you're friends with on Facebook, for those of us who even still use Facebook. Like, how many of those relationships are even worthwhile? And it's like, because you don't have that connection, that physical presence, it's easy for you to maybe act in such a way online where it's like you wouldn't act in real life. And it's like, you got to be careful with that, because again, you don't know what the person is going through. At least when you're present to the other person, you at least are able to understand them in a way that these screens, that these videos don't fully establish. And I really like what this guy is saying, because a lot of what he's saying is true, but I think that's even more of a reason why you need to have a connection with God. Like, however you understand God, it's important to have a connection with a higher power. At the very least, a higher power. At best, with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. You need to have those connections, that connection with God, so that when nobody else is by your side, you know that there is at least one person who is by you. And when you have that, you can go through anything in life and still find joy, still find meaning, still find a purpose. So let's continue.
There, but it's not. When we're all stuffed into a small, close quarters, nobody talks to each other, nobody smiles, nobody looks at each other, nobody knows each other's name, what we do in life and who we are, that's not a community. Because a community would know all of those things.
Yes.
It's almost like we walk around, and when you see somebody, your thoughts are just if they're a friend or a foe. And because you don't have the answer to that, you just default with that person's an enemy. And they're going to be an enemy until proven different, but we don't ever give the chance to prove if that person could be your friend or not, or you know, if they're your enemy. And I don't even think we should be thinking about everybody in the sense of friend or foe, because that just divides us so much more, and it makes connection really difficult, really hard.
I mean, that's so true. That's so true. It's like when you don't interact with someone, when you don't really get to know them, it's so easy to just immediately think like they're the enemy. They're an enemy. They're not there for your best interest. You shouldn't trust them, and anything like that. And that's why, like, first impressions, they can go either way. You could either like think that a person is great by like your first impression of them, and they might end up being a terrible person. And on the flip side, they might not be making a good impression with that person might not be making a good impression with you, and they might be like one of the best people that you could possibly have in your life. And it's like, but if you don't have any way of actually establishing that connection with that person, it's so easy to just write them off as being someone you don't want in your life. And it's just so true. That, like, if you don't understand a person, if you don't even have that interaction with them, you're going to assume that they're probably not the kind of person that you want with you.
The reason why I feel so empty inside is just I don't watch the news, I don't like the news, but it's everywhere you go. The second you go online, you go on Facebook, you go on Google, you go anywhere, there's always ads, there's always news. As much as you try not to seek it, it's still going to come your way. And you're also going to be around a lot of people that do follow the news. And what I think that's done to us is when you're continually blasted with negativity, unhappiness, sad stories that are supposed to make you angry, it changes the way you feel inside. And not in that moment, but in the grand scheme of things, it generally just reduces your happiness until one day you wake up.
That I know this from my own personal life. That is so true. It's like when you fill your mind in with garbage, whether it's from the news, whether it's from podcasters talking about the news and things like that, that the more that happens, the more you're divided from other people, because you start again to see other people as potential enemies. This was true for me back when Donald Trump, back when I supported him, when he lost the 2020 election. And then you have like just the political pundits just like who support him just continue to have this vitriol, painting the left as being like terrible people when obviously they're not. They might have views that are either wrong or that you disagree with, but like you just start looking at them as like other. And I know for me, especially when January 6th happened, I used to be very angry and things like that. I used to like have a lot of like negative views, and it's like during that time in my life I was not really doing the best with recovery. I was not really doing the best with my relationship with God, and I was filling myself more and more and more with this filth that, like, I mean, I shouldn't necessarily say it's filth necessarily, but in the sense that I kept filling myself up with this, with all that I was hearing, I just went more inward and inward and inward until it's like I didn't really care about anything that was really of importance, really. And like that can destroy relationships. That can also destroy your state of mind, regardless of whether you are a Trump supporter or not, regardless of whether you are on the left or the right. If you keep filling yourself with just like all this political commentary and stuff dealing with the news, and then now with like the stuff going on in Iran, the more that you fill your mind up with those kind of things, the more you're going to be angry at the world and angry at those who might have different views than you. And that's why, like, for me, like, I only listen now to to a couple things that are political. And one of them, it's like I don't even listen to an entire episode. I just kind of listen to it for entertainment values. It's No Agenda with John C. Dvorak and Adam Curry, which is a pretty good podcast in my opinion. But even then, it's like I try to limit myself to certain shows and stuff like that. Most of the time that I listen to is stuff dealing with my faith, dealing with theology, dealing with music, dealing with just other stuff that I think is more worthwhile, more entertaining, more things that I think are not such that are really going to necessarily put me in a bad mood. Because when it comes to the news, when it comes to politics, I mean, we all know who the prince of this world is. And so you're always going to have bad things happening by people, regardless of where they are on the spectrum, on the political spectrum, that is. So I'm just going to continue on.
In the morning, and right from the start of the day, before anything's even happened, you're already in a bad mood. You already don't feel good. You feel empty. And then from there, recharging and getting back is extremely hard. If you guys have ever noticed, when you're in a bad mood and somebody tries to put you in a better mood, sometimes that can make you feel even worse, and it can make you angry. And it's because when your pain body is in control, it doesn't feed on happiness. It feeds on more negativity. Mm-hmm. That's why negative people like to be negative, and they want more negative people around them.
Yep.
And so they can feed on them.
Yep.
It's literally how it works. So I think the media has poisoned everybody and stripped a level of happiness that we all had, and created this deep void in everybody I'm really starting to feel deep in my core now, and I don't know how to get it out of there. I don't want to feel like this anymore. And I think another reason why I feel so empty inside is just the general polarization between men and women. You know, growing up, I loved having friends that were girls. I really like having a girlfriend and having a partner in my life. But that's kind of just gone, and it's a thing of the past for me at this point. At least kind of how things are going. And I think we can all agree that kind of globally there's this kind of underlying division between the sexes these days. And that's creating an emptiness in everybody.
All right. Well, before he goes into a different topic, because I mean, as you can tell, like with this video, he covers different things, like relating to like what he thinks is making him empty. So I just want to touch on what he's saying there. The whole thing with negativity is true. It's like, I know this from my own experience. Like, I think during like a good amount of the time that I've spent in 12-step recovery until, by the grace of God, October of 2023, I was just in a negative state. Like, it seemed like a lot of things in my life were not going the way that I wanted. And so, like, even like during that time, I was just so full of negativity. I didn't have any sense of joy. I didn't have any sense of like a strong relationship with God, in the sense that I believed that He had my back. And like, I find that, like, in my own experience, that like negativity, or as we in the 12-step world would call basically resentment, that those things just, it's a drug. The more negativity you have, the more you start to leech on other people, the more you like kind of just keep going inward instead of outward. You have that idea, that feeling that it's like that there almost seems to be this pleasure in negativity. There seems to be this pleasure in that. And the thing is, it's just not worth it. It's not worth having the negativity, because ultimately it just leads to like either giving into your addiction if you're an addict. It leads you to just continue to isolate.
It's going back to that key thing of just connection between humans, connection between the sexes. You know, having that person that you can count on, coming home to a warm house. That's one thing that really hit me after my separation, was coming home to a cold house that has no life in it. There's no, you know, coming home to having to dinner being cooked is huge. It's a really big thing to have, like, good smells and an atmosphere in your house when you walk in. It's total night and day than coming into this static air that's cold and quiet, all the lights are off, and you have to essentially build your atmosphere every single day by yourself, for yourself. And it's hard. It does, I'll admit it feels empty. It absolutely does. As much as I like to be alone and I like my personal time, and, you know, I survive and I get through the day, and I've found a routine that works for me, there are times where I definitely feel lonely and empty inside. And it's from not having that other person to count on, not having that person to just do the most random things. Like, you want to watch a movie and just hang out, go on a drive, go to the beach.
Well, this is a moment that I really want to thank God for all the friends in my life, or my family, for all the people to whom I can turn for help, because it really makes a difference. Like, especially in my 12-step community, having connections there, it's something that is really important to have. And like for me, I still live with my parents. I mean, yes, I'm 35 years old, still living with my parents. And, I hope to have my own place someday when I can afford it. But, there are like things that I hear like this kind of help me to realize that, like, yes, it's okay to have your own place, but like, what are you doing to kind of still be grounded? Do you have a relationship with God? Do you have people in your life that you can still turn to? And thanks be to God, I do. I wouldn't have come this far without both my relationship with God and as well as my relationship with other people. Like, it's very important to have those things to keep you grounded, to make sure that your life is not just a grind. It's so important. It cannot be stressed enough, because I have like people, I know of at least one person who, she's in her late 70s dealing with health problems, and she really does not have much connections with people. Because of that, she goes through a lot of just suffering, not just physically but mentally, and it's really not a great picture. And I'm thankful that I can be there for her, and that other people can be there for her too. But it's like, when I have my own place, when I come home to it and like no one's there, how will I feel? I certainly want to make sure that when I move out, that I will still be there for my family and my friends, and that they will still be for me. Because that is something that is really important. It's really hard to thrive when you don't have any connections whatsoever, and I can't imagine what that is like. I can't. What I can imagine, though, what I have experienced, though, is that I've experienced times of loneliness when certain people would not be around and things like that. Like, I've experienced that. But to go through that all the time, it just makes me thankful that I have those people in my life.
All sorts of things, and these are things that I've substituted now with my dog, but it only goes so far. Don't get me wrong, I love the little dude, and just his presence in the house is worth so much, and it's helped me out tremendously. But having somebody that you can talk to, have an in-depth conversation with, somebody that can notice when you're feeling down and try and help you out, that's huge. And when you don't have that, it's extremely difficult. It really is. I think a lot of people can relate with that. I think, as the years are going on, I've really noticed that more and more people aren't in relationships, but a lot of people don't speak about how they feel. So we think everybody's doing well, and everybody's doing fine, and everybody's empowered and strong, but I don't think we are. I think a lot of us are growing weaker. I think a lot of us are feeling more empty, void, sad, just a bunch of emotions that you would never ask for and don't want to feel, is I think how a lot of people feel nowadays. Like I say, just people aren't willing to say it. They're scared to say it. They don't know what other people are going to think of them. But I had to come on here and say it. I really do. It's how I feel today. I'm just going to sit with it, and I'll just continually try to work on it. I think that's the best that I can do right now. So if you guys like the content, if you guys could like and subscribe, let me know what you think. If you guys have any suggestions, or if you guys feel the same, and you guys want to chat, let me know in the comments. Really like engaging with everybody in there. You guys have a great day. Something shifted around.
Okay, so, yeah, that's the end of the video. And like, my final thoughts are like, I agree with pretty much everything he's saying, that like, when you don't have connections with people, when you don't have any kind of like sense of community, you're just going to be weighed down and alone. And what it was saying there at the end is so true. Like, people aren't open that much anymore about what they're feeling, because there's a sense, I think, that in society that we still have, especially when it comes to like mental illness. I mean, I'm not sure if he has any mental illness or not, but just the idea of like, where it's like you want to keep those things private. You don't want to share what's on your mind. You don't want to go and like talk about what's troubling you. And it's like the more you do that, the more, again, that you feel isolated. And that's why it's so important to have people in your life that you can trust. And that's also why, like, I don't know if this particular person has a belief in God or in any kind of higher power, but I think that's why it's all the more important, because it's when you don't have anyone else in your life, you still have God. You still have a belief that there is someone who is there, who's not out to get you, but who's out to love you, and who is there rooting for you. And you also have your guardian angel. And it's just something that, like, it's really important to have some sense of community. Even if the friendships are not deep, if you have at least one person you can turn to, even if they're not always available, like, that makes a big difference. Otherwise, like, life is just too hard to go through when you don't have God and when you don't have other people. At least if you have God, you have somebody who you can trust, who's always going to be faithful, who's not going to be superficial. But even then, it's important to have a sense of community, because we're all meant to live as a community. But when it comes to, like, the way of the world, it seems that more and more we're becoming more isolated. That's why, like, AI can be dangerous, because of this idea how, like, with ChatGPT, the way it interacts with you is that it interacts with you as if it were a real person. And that's wrong. Like, that's wrong. And, like, I fall into that trap of going to ChatGPT for advice instead of reaching out to other people. And, like, that can be, for me, an OCD compulsion to use ChatGPT. It's like, you gotta have people in your life. You gotta have at least one person in your life besides God. And even if you don't have anyone else in your life besides God, at least that's something. Because if you remain more faithful to God, if you remain faithful with Him and have this loving relationship with Him, that can lead you to other people. And it's like, it's important. But at the same time, you got to be thankful for what you have. And that's the thing. I don't know if this guy is thankful or not for what he has. I mean, he mentions that he has his dog, which I agree. I'm a dog lover, though I don't have any pets at the moment. Like, be thankful for what you have. Because if you're not going to spend time to be thankful for what you have, it just makes life more unbearable. Believe me, I know this from my own experience. And so, anyway, I'm going to be definitely praying for this person. I don't really know his name, but I will include the link to his video in the description. Anyway, guys, please pray for this person. Pray for me. I'm praying for all of you. And I'm going to be praying for this person as well. So, God bless. That's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.